Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3766. Today's date is December 18, 2025. It's been almost like a night at 10:02 p.m. All right, let's just jump into the question. Let's go. All right, the question is, what if thoughts could be broadcast like radio? Oh, that's a really good question. All right, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? This is what if question. Why am I asking this question to myself? What if question is always really interested way to give the answer. It kind of like force you to think about that reality. When I try to think about that reality or when I try to create that reality, I'm kind of like utilizing my knowledge and information and experience. And somehow while I was doing it that, while I was kind of like using my knowledge and experience, it kind of like felt good. Disclaimer. The information that I'm trying to tell you is not exactly right or is not exactly wrong either. It's a raw, it's unfiltered, it's just my opinion. So do not believe in any kind of like information that I'm saying or do not seek for any kind of like information that I'm saying. It's just my thoughts and thoughts, it's just my opinion and opinion are subjective. Now regarding about the question says that what if thought could be broadcast like a radio? Like at first glance, it would be kind of like a really amazing. Like amazing means what? Like basically someone kind of like a hearing your thoughts on the radio. So probably just like imagine a particular world where you have a radio and there are kind of like a millions of channel. Okay, yeah. Like basically if you wanted to listen a red FM, so 98.3 red FM. Okay, yeah. So I switched to that frequency. So basically every person thoughts has a kind of like a own frequency range. Okay, yeah. And when you dial up that frequency, you kind of like hear that particular person thought process. Like a thought, like whatever he was kind of like a thinking, real time. Okay, yeah. Now when this thing is actually happened, it kind of like somebody it kind of like felt that key I don't know how I supposed to explain. It's a kind of like a thing that just try to imagine that particular world. You are kind of like have this FM. You kind of like suddenly switch couple of dials, and you are kind of like hearing some sort of random person thoughts. Now you don't know who is that particular person, and you don't know who is that particular person frequency. Nothing really at all. You just kind of like you just kind of like somebody getting that like a 103.78 frequency is belong to someone. Okay, I'm not really sure who is that person, but he was kind of like thinking about something. He was kind of like thinking about whatever he was kind of like thinking. You are kind of like hearing. Now at the first glance, you might kind of like feel that a kind of like a common person thought process, and it just kind of like somebody boring at the same first time. Now why is that boring? Like a basically thought process are kind of like a really interested way, na? Like basically you are kind of like hearing someone thought process and things like that. Yeah, that is right, but the problem is that the particular person like the broadcast who's actually kind of like somebody streaming live. Okay, yeah. And like we are not kind of like thinking every single time. No, nothing really at all. Like imagine that let's just say you are kind of like somebody doing something doing any kind of like a work or things like that. Yeah, probably you are kind of like humming some sort of music or things or that and that, but not every time you are kind of like thinking like that. It's not. But at some certain point you might gonna thinking something which is kind of like thinking about your boyfriend or husband or things or that and that. You are kind of like missing him, and you are just a random person who are kind of like hearing this particular person who's kind of like thinking about her husband or boyfriend or missing about that particular person and things like that. Okay, yeah. Now in when this actually happened, I don't know how do I supposed to explain. Like this reality would be kind of like somebody is this thing. Like there is a one thing that I wanted to explain. Okay, yeah. I wanted to build a kind of like a equivalent to that particular context. If equivalent to that particular question. What do you mean by that? Okay, yeah. Let me tell you one thing what I'm trying to tell you. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing. I am kind of the things that you are kind of like hearing right now. It's called artifact episode. Okay, yeah. In this artifact episode or any other artifact episode, I will ask bunch of questions to myself. Okay, yeah. Now this is kind of like an artifact episode or kind of like somebody talking to myself. I am doing this kind of like a procedure for almost like a decade. I started this thing at the 11th of February 2015. Okay, yeah. And it's been almost like a 2025. So it's been almost like a decade. And I'm doing this every single day. Every single day, I kind of like somebody came at the rooftop or somewhere at kind of like a privacy and kind of like a talk about my feelings, my thoughts. Sometimes I don't really have any kind of like a something to say. So I ask a bunch of questions to myself and kind of like a, yeah, it's a kind of like assembly a diary. Okay, yeah, like you wrote the diary every single day. This is what exactly is it, but in kind of like assembly audio diary. Like instead of kind of like a writing, I'm converted into the recording. Okay, yeah, I kind of like a record my thoughts and things like that. Okay, yeah, and somehow it kind of like a felt really good. Somehow it kind of like a felt that ki I'm kind of like a somebody dumping out all my thoughts and things. Like I do, it's not kind of like a somebody thing that ki a thoughts or kind of like a somebody stuck inside of me. It's kind of like no, like for me this artifact is kind of like I had so much value in myself in a such a way that I don't know how do I supposed to describe. It's too much. It kind of like a change me. It kind of like a change my perspective. It changed my entire me. Okay, and yeah, it has that kind of like a power and things like that. Now basically what I'm thinking is that what if I could make a application where people would supposed to be kind of like a record their artifact. Okay, yeah. Now how is this actually happened? Okay, so it actually happened that people will kind of like somebody open my app. Okay, yeah, kind of like somebody hit the record and they will kind of like started talking about something. Okay, yeah, they're gonna talk about the things what exactly happened in their life or day or things or that. Sometimes if they don't really have anything to say, there is a multiple questions are also available to, you have to give them answer. Okay, yeah. And kind of like a when those people are kind of like simply recording this thing, it kind of like a they are felt really good. Okay, yeah. But why they will gonna do that thing? Okay, yeah. Okay, my application is just not just kind of like simply people will gonna record, people will gonna listen other people's thoughts too or other people artifact too. Okay, yeah. It's a kind of like a simply social media platform. Okay, yeah, that ki everyone are kind of like a simply hearing everyone's of kind of like a artifact or their thought process, the what they are thinking regarding about this and that. Now while doing it that I wanted to kind of like a make sure one thing, privacy. Okay, yeah, because I realized myself that when I was kind of like a recording my artifact and things like that, my thoughts are really messy. Really messy, yeah. Like it's not really good, it's not really good, it's just raw, it's unfiltered. The way that you are kind of like assembly hearing right now is a kind of like assembly is also raw and there is nothing really, there is no there is no script at all, there is no filter at all. I'm kind of like a whatever kind of like a thought inside of me, I just blunt it out. Okay, yeah. So it's kind of like a very raw, okay, very unfiltered. And another thing is that now the privacy is very much essential. Because of that, the people might gonna hear artifact, they might gonna know who am I, what exactly is this thing and that. And that is not really good if the people knows about me. Okay, yeah. If I'm kind of like a recording my artifact, then probably I'm gonna make sure that key people might gonna record, people might gonna listen my artifact, but they will not gonna know my name and things like that. So I'm gonna make sure the privacy should supposed to be controlled. Means like that you cannot able to be create your account by your name, nothing really at all. You just have to kind of like create your name by kind of like a username or things like that. Okay, yeah. Also is this thing while recording your artifact, if you kind of like a mention your name or your surrounding area or things like that, my application are kind of like a powered by AI, which kind of like somebody eliminate the all the noun thing. Noun means like that, like my name is Saurabh Bauthare. So Saurabh Bauthare is a noun, so it kind of like a somebody add kind of like a somebody beep over there or kind of like a blank over there or kind of like a somebody remove that particular segment. so that when the people might gonna listen, my name is T. They okay, yeah. So basically, they might gonna hear this. They will kind of like hear that beep or things like that. Okay, yeah. So basically, it's this thing that the people who are kind of like listening the artifact, they will not gonna know my name. They will not gonna know. They will gonna know the content. Okay, yeah. What I've been through and things and that and that and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now, why does people will gonna do this thing? If the people doesn't really have this identity or things or that, then why does people will gonna do this thing? Well, I realize kind of like something very different in my entire period of lifetime. Like while I was kind of like a recording artifact and things like that. Like let me tell you one thing now. When we are kind of like living the life, there are so much stress or kind of like a build up entire day or during the day or kind of like a during the life or things like that. And we need a kind of like a only particular person so that we should supposed to be express what exactly happened and things like that. Okay, now why is that? Why we wanted to express and things like that? Because we are a social animal. We are kind of like simply just we are always thinking about this and that and that and that, and we just always wanted to kind of like simply just blunt it down, things like that. It just wanted to kind of like let it out. Okay, yeah, we want that. And not only me but everyone are like, you also experience this thing at somewhere, some part of your time or life. There is a kind of like a things that you wanted to kind of like express and dump it out your thoughts and things like that. Now if you have your boyfriend, girlfriend or husband and wife, you can do this thing because you have that particular person that you might gonna kind of like a dump out everything or share your thoughts regarding about what exactly happened or things like that. Or you could kind of like simply wrote the diary, but diary is a bit more kind of like a little bit difficult to do this thing because when you kind of like a thinking and when you're writing are kind of like a completely different speed. Okay, yeah. And it's kind of like a bit really hectic to kind of like a maintain and things like that. So this is kind of like a things that kind of like a application where you kind of like a dump out everything. You just kind of like a find a particular place that you could kind of like a simply record your artifact, hit that record button and just dump it out. Just says what exactly happened to you and things and that, like whatever kind of like a simply the hectic day that you have, like how much you hate your boss and things like that. Just dump it out everything, because when you are kind of like a dumbed down, when you kind of like express yourself, it kind of like a felt really good. Like after that you kind of like a felt that wow, now I feel really good. It's a kind of like a things that na ki, when you went to number two, okay, yeah, after you done your number two, you kind of like felt that light. This is what exactly that you gonna feel when you kind of like simply record that artifact. And because this is what I feel, because when I try to kind of like dump it out everything what I'm thoughts and things like that, yeah. So my application is kind of like that. Now another question is that who will gonna listen those artifact, right? Okay, so basically is this thing na, it's not that ki basically no one will gonna listen. Obviously there are so many people will gonna listen and things like that. Well, let me give you the perspective. Let me tell you. Okay, yeah. Is this thing na ki people will gonna listen. Like when the kind of like some things are became kind of like a bit more personal and things like that, usually people associate with that particular thing. Example, let's just say that there is a person who is a kind of like somebody had a like a propose with someone else. Okay, yeah. And he kind of like mention he kind of like somebody record the artifact regarding about how this actually happened. He kind of like mentioned that he was kind of like waiting for her while he was kind of like trying to tell her. He was kind of like really scared and things and that and that. So he was kind of like telling an entire story that how he proposed her. Okay, yeah. Obviously from the point of perspective, he didn't really mention his name or her name, nothing really at all, but he just kind of like express his feelings. Okay, yeah. Now obviously who will gonna listen those things? The people who kind of like somebody already experienced this thing or already kind of like been through that particular process, or they wanted to kind of like propose someone else, they will gonna resonate and they will gonna listen those things. Okay, and they will might gonna connect or stuff like that. It's a kind of like simply a human thing. I don't know how do I supposed to explain this thing, but yeah, people will gonna kind of like simply connect and people will gonna listen this thing. So it's not really that ki no one will gonna record, and it's not really that ki no one will gonna listen. Definitely there are some people might gonna listen and some people might gonna record. Okay, yeah. I just have to make sure that ki privacy should supposed to be maintained. Okay, yeah. And it's kind of like somebody look like a kind of like somebody a radio where kind of like some people will gonna listen your thoughts and things like that. I wanted to convert this in an application, my artifact episode. Okay, like my artifact. But if I like, basically this is I wanted to do, but there are so many things. Okay, yeah, it's not really that it's not gonna possible. It is possible. Yeah, I'm gonna make it possible. Yeah, but still there is a lot of stuff to do. Right now I have this kind of like some idea that I wanted to execute, but still I don't really have any money or any kind of like some resources or things like that. I am not a coding person. I wanted to build the application, so I just have to figure it out and things like that. There are a lot of stuff to do. Okay, yeah. And another thing is that na ki is this thing, people might gonna say this thing that ki why do I supposed to record this artifact, like what if I have this girlfriend or wife, I will kind of like tell her like what is actually happened in my life, what is happened in my day, why do I supposed to kind of like rely on the application or things or that. Well, it's not kind of like something I'm forcing you to do this thing. If you are a kind of like a solely person, and you if you have that kind of like a solely people who are a kind of like a listen at you or things like that, then that is okay. You just have to do it this thing. I'm not actually forcing you, but there are so many people who are kind of like a somebody been through, because same thing happened with me too. Because when I started recording artifact, I started recording artifact from that possible point of perspective, because at that particular day when I kind of like somebody feeling very low in my particular life in that particular day, I just kind of like started this thing. I kind of like inspired from the Avatar movie. In the Avatar movie, people who are kind of like simply recording this log video. Okay, yeah. In this log video, they kind of like simply mention that what exactly happened throughout the day and things like that. And why is that? Because those are human are kind of like living in different parts, different planets, and that planet atmosphere is not meant to be kind of like remember for a long period of time. So that's why they just have to kind of like assembly tell them every single thing what exactly happened throughout the day and things like that. I was bitterly kind of like somebody inspired this particular process, and I wanted to do this thing. Okay, yeah. But I haven't really initiated that thing because I didn't really achieve that low point. 11th of February 2015, I achieved that low point at that time. Like very low. Like basically, I really wanted to kind of like express what is actually been through and things like that. Okay, yeah. And since then, I kind of like create this artifact episode. And like basically at the beginning I didn't really kind of like simply build this as a kind of like simply I wanted to build the application or things or that. No, nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. Like basically is this thing na ki I always knew somehow that my life is kind of like simply something very different, and I wanted to document my life. Okay, yeah. And another thing is that now when I started doing this thing, at first time it kind of like a feel really awkward to kind of like a talking to myself and things like that. But it took me almost like a 6 month to be a kind of like a being consistent and being kind of like a somebody that key not have that hesitation to talk to ourselves. Okay, yeah. But after 6 months I am became kind of like a really good, because from this possible point of perspective, from this way I'm kind of like a feel really light, feel really kind of like a things that key I am expressing myself. I'm kind of like really talking to myself, and it kind of like a felt really good. Okay, yeah. So it's just kind of like a things that now I realize that key in our entire period of lifetime, there is a one person who is always with you, but you never really talk with that particular person, and that particular person is you. Like basically, what like have you ever kind of like realized that key there are so many things that you don't know? Okay, yeah. And this is what kind of like some artifact are kind of like assembly letting you know that who you are, because it's kind of like a thing that no, it's just that key. It's just that key, like I don't know how do I supposed to explain, like basically throughout this artifact when I kind of like know about myself that I'm very calm person. I should supposed to be control my calmness. I should supposed to be kind of like a focus on my work. I should supposed to be kind of like a somebody have kind of like a somebody friendship, or kind of like a somebody have little less anger, or kind of like a control my emotions in every possible way. Also I kind of like realize that ki I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I know that my path is kind of like really not that good and things like that. So that's why I just need a kind of like a motivation for me, so that I should supposed to be pump up and kind of like a focus on my goals and things and that. So it kind of like helped me a lot in every possible way. Okay. And this is what it is like basically that's why like if you don't really believe in things like that, you just kind of like simply look at in my YouTube platform. Like YouTube platform, I uploaded all my artifact is not meant for kind of like simply just know that ki how much I kind of like simply, it's not more for kind of like a YouTube and things like that. I kind of like upload those artifact for kind of like simply I don't really have a space. Okay, yeah, my hard disk got corrupted and things like that. So it's kind of like a very dangerous situation for the artifact because I lose some of the artifact. Okay, I kind of like, because hard disk got corrupted, so I don't want to take that chance again. So that's why I kind of like upload those artifact on the YouTube platform. It's not meant for kind of like simply the views, definitely not. Probably I have, at this moment I have almost like a 68 subscriber on that platform, nothing really at all. But it's not meant for views, nothing really at all. Yeah, so this is what it is. This is, I wanted to build that particular thing. And yeah, it will gonna add so much value in the people's life, because it add value in so, it adds so much value in my life too. So yes, definitely we're gonna add a value in people's life too. So that's why this kind of like assembly is this thing, the stuff that I about that I am wanting to do. This artifact is kind of like a somewhat something associated with the kind of like something a radio where people, you might gonna people the, you might gonna hurt the people thought process and things like that. This is what kind of like assembly, somewhat something associated with like that, right? So which is really good, which is really great, which is kind of like assembly, yeah. But still there is a, I know that it's a kind of like stuff that I'm saying is kind of like so easy and so cool and so amazing, but in reality there are a lot of stuff to figure it out. And I will gonna do this. Yeah, definitely I'm gonna do this thing. By the way, this is it. This is it. She's supposed to be end here. And thank you.